starting from Friday this coming week, a sweeping 30% tariff imposed by the United States on South African exports will officially come into effect. While key exports like gold and coal are exempt, the pain is expected to be sharpest in sectors like the automotive industry, citrus, steel, and aluminium. These are sectors that directly employ tens of thousands of South Africans, and the ripple effects could go well beyond trade. So what does this all mean for food prices, for jobs, for our already fragile economy? Let's unpack it all with Owen Nkomo, an economist who joins us now to take that conversation forward. Owen, good afternoon. It's great to talk to you after a long while. Let's start with the likelihood of these tariffs, the 30% tariffs coming into effect against the backdrop of talk of, a kind of a framework agreement that has been reached between South Africa and the United States. It's not the substantive, and it's important to emphasize this, not the substantive trade agreement, but a framework that includes conditions precedent. So what's your hope? The Minister of Finance says he hopes that, if the tariffs don't kick in on the 1st of August. Is that likely to play out given what we know now?
Look, I think we definitely hope that the tariffs don't kick in on the 1st of August because the impact will definitely be quite significant in light of the fact that our economy is growing only at 0.5% at the moment, Mr. Smellan. We need every single rand to come into the country, and any disturbance to the industries that are selling into America will result in lots of job losses. So one does hope that between now and the 1st of August, we will be able to get some consensus that might bring back those tariff numbers maybe to something closer to 10%, if not less, because even that 10% introduces a tax that wasn't calculated into the production numbers by the companies that will be that are actually selling into the United States of America. It's like a new tax which you didn't budget for, and for us, it starts to create all sorts of problems because our products become uncompetitive when you comparing us to the American producers of similar products.
So let's talk then about the impact of these tariffs if they do come in. We already have a glimpse, don't we, Owen, of what the kind of damage that they can do. For instance, what we are seeing playing itself out in the automotive sector, which reported recently massive losses based on just the 25% that was introduced specifically for the automotive sector. You can only imagine then when the 30% comes in across the board.
Yes, it will definitely exacerbate those numbers. And it's not just the automotive sector that will be in trouble. Some of the other industries are also going to be affected. The citrus industry, we export a lot of citrus products into America. And we estimate that the number of jobs that could be lost in that particular segment is about, or rather is ending between 0 and maybe 10,000, because the sector employs about 35,000 odd people in the country. And the automotive sector is obviously the most sensitive one because we employ up to 500,000 people with all our production facilities across the country. And, we do think that probably 100,000 odd jobs could be at risk in that space. Agriculture, lots of stuff is sold to America, as I said, grapes, wine, fruit juices, and a few other things. Will obviously be sectors that are at risk. And the currency also is going to be one thing that will obviously be at risk there. Let me just give you an idea of how much we export into America in rands. That is a staggering number of 157 billion odd rands on an annual basis to Lasizwe. And, anything that touches that number is obviously going to touch our ultimate production. Our ultimate productivity as a country. Luckily, we've got exemptions, for example, in the chrome space, gold and coal, because Donald Trump is clever. He knows that if these are to be expensive, American producers might not have alternative replacements for these particular minerals. And we export just under $3 billion into America of these particular minerals. So exempting them from this tariff is actually a relatively good idea for the Americans to do. But I do think that overall we've got a lot of negotiation to do with America. Hopefully we get it right.
Yeah. So to the extent then that it hasn't become clear, Owen, let's spell it out then. Let's draw hard lines for the average South African. Why does it all matter for us? All that we've discussed, all these issues you and I have been discussing the last few minutes, what would be the direct impact for the average South African?
For the average South African, you're going to find your neighbor actually unemployed potentially if he works in any of these industries, or you could lose your job, or indirectly if you're dependent on someone who works for any of these industries, job losses. Our economy, we're going to see probably a cut of maybe 0.1 to 0.2% in terms of potential GDP contribution, which means our economy is not going to grow. And mind you, we're talking about our economy growing already at 0.5 to maybe 0.7 odd percent per annum. So we definitely would be affected. And I do think that it's quite directly clear that job losses and factory closures in some cases, or production reduction, as you have mentioned, the automobile sector in South Africa, all those cars that we manufacture or are manufactured for international brands, but manufactured in South Africa and sold into America, will definitely be affected. So it's quite an important part in our economic cycle. And I do hope that we get this right so that people don't lose jobs.
Just another aspect, Owen, was I reading too much into it when I heard President Ramaphosa emphasizing the need to diversify our export markets when he was visiting the BMW plant out in Pretoria, where the new X3 will be produced? And there was a sense of relief that says, fortunately, not for the US market, but for the European market. Is there a sense of resignation that says, even if we get this framework agreement and eventually maybe have a trade agreement, trade with the United States is always going to be tricky for as long as Donald Trump remains in the White House? And therefore, let's foreground and amplify the message that says, let's diversify where we send our exports to.
Definitely have no choice but to look for other markets. And like you say, this is probably a Donald Trump administration issue. And should there be a change in guard, maybe a change in just his presidency, even if the Republicans stay in charge, we might see a relaxation of some of these tariffs post Donald Trump's presidency, because it's just done so aggressively and it's caused not just pain for the rest of the countries that trade with America, but for American companies as well that actually use these inputs that are being sent into America. All of a sudden, you have to pay up or to not pay up for these South African produced products. But it's important for us to look for other markets like Europe, Asia, and other places in order to replace America, at least for the next 3 to 4 years, until we see if Donald Trump changes his mind overnight, as he often does. But I think if it doesn't do that, we are suited to be looking for other countries that we can sell our products to, because definitely Donald Trump easily have his way in most of these things.
Just at a broader level, Owen, when we're talking about the issue of tariffs, trade tariffs, isn't this a conversation that had been settled with the World Trade Organization? The General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, all of those negotiations that took years, if not decades. This is all, it seems to me, reopening conversations that many thought had long been settled. I mean, this whole talk of the US administration is almost going to have unique agreements with each and every country. And I think I heard the expression 90 agreements in 90 days. Owen? All right, it would seem we lost Owen Nkomo there, an economist, but I think we had covered enough ground there on that theme of the tariffs that are set to kick in on the 1st of August if South Africa and the United States don't reach a deal by then. We are told there is a framework agreement. I'm told we have Owen. Owen, I don't know if you caught my question before I move on. I wanted you to just talk to it from a global level, the sense of rewriting of the rules, at least as far as tariffs and trade are concerned. I remember many years ago covering some of the processes around the World Trade Organization and, the then what was called the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, GATT. It appears to me that all of that is being thrown up in the air and being smashed to smithereens with a new approach that says the United States wants to have an agreement that is unique with each and every country. And there was this expression, 90 agreements in 90 days.
Yes, definitely all of those agreements. And, the world as we know it, all the way we've traded with each other across the world, particularly if you look at issues like the growth of BRICS and other formations that are starting to challenge America. There's a big need for America to defend itself, its relevance, and its currency, for the US dollar to continue to be the dominant currency of reference. You'll find that trade agreements and trade positions that are Donald Trump is currently projecting against the rest of the world are basically meant to protect the US dollar. The BRICS countries need to react to this. The rest of the global formations, that need to protect their sovereignty and the power of their currencies need to do the same. So it takes us back to the most powerful tools for valuing currencies, which is global trade and national trade, international trade between countries. So therefore, we definitely have to revisit these agreements. And Donald Trump necessarily has started a conversation that might have been sleeping for decades, but it has room for consideration. And it does give Africa a chance as well to say, can Africa stand up and hold hands and say, guys, this is how we go against the rest of the world in terms of all these things that we produce and dig out of the soil and export to the rest of the world? Can we have different agreements that actually favor our economy surviving into the future? And if you read any international analysts' recommendations for where most money will be going in the next 2 to 3 decades, it's going to be coming to Africa because of our rich resource bases. And if we don't ourselves as Africa think about bringing on new arrangements that favor us, we will continue to be second best when people like Donald Trump take presidency in their countries, in their respective countries.
All right, Owen, thank you for your insights this afternoon. That's Owen Nkomo, economist, there weighing in on the tariffs that we expect will kick in on the 1st of August, which will impose what? A 30% tariff on all imports into the United States that have their source and origin being the Republic of South Africa.